Leo's insights are presented to challenge, inform, and encourage you in your quest to break free from school-based approaches to education. Building upon a foundation of unschooling, we sincerely hope these insights help you to consider how education can be truly unlimited.
I would like to say that my disagreeing with an article happens on occasion, but that would be untrue. I disagree with most articles I read in papers, journals, and magazines. I try to limit my reading to media that more reflects my worldview, but Christianity is now in disrepute because its enemies, while claiming the moral high ground, have said so. Moral high ground, eh? The problem is there cannot be a high or a low ground for that matter when the basis for such does not exist. Let's put it this way. Moral relativists immediately contradict themselves when they claim there is no such thing as right and wrong, when they uncritically claim that their statement is indeed true. It is not morality that these lost souls are debating, but the essence of God. You cannot have a moral structure without a moral authority to establish it. Therefore, in their limited understanding, relativists think that to unilaterally eliminate any reference to right and wrong, they have eliminated God. Flawed thinking, to be sure. This has a resemblance of the proverbial sticking one's head in the sand. The world may not seem to exist, but it is the person who has eliminated it by refusing to see it. This was brought to light the other day as I read an article about schools in Ontario in a vain attempt to make everyone equitable. Now, I need to point out that that's a different thing from equal. But in a vain attempt to make everyone equitable, the school is determined to change its program to make everyone exactly the same. To be equal means we can be different, yet have the same opportunity or be treated with the same degree of respect. To desire equity is to want everyone to be the same. An example of the logical extension of this would be the desire to have every person's skin color modified to be exactly the same. That way, there would be no racism based on skin color. I know it's ridiculous, no doubt. But that is the ultimate wish of those who push the equitable treatment of everyone agenda, although they have not likely extended their thinking beyond themselves and their non-existent utopian world. The article talked about a wholehearted push for equitable treatment of all students. That is, the educational establishment or the intelligentsia have determined that to stream students according to their abilities is unjust. And in a most bizarre example of illogic, introduces or advances entrenched systems of power and privilege. Let me quote, "These people are constantly working to center the conversation around the effects of inequity, oppression, racism, xenophobia, homophobia, transphobia, and other forms of hate and discrimination, specifically for racialized students." In other words, kids' success or failure is shaped by historic forces that determine their victim status. You can be forgiven for not understanding that verbal diatribe. You cannot understand this nonsense unless you crawl into what I would consider to be their confused heads. You must understand that this would be the natural extension of their disbelief in God. If there is no God, then there's no such thing as individual gifts, talents, abilities, interests, and so on. We are all the product of brainless chance evolution that can only create clones of some sort. These folks believe that the differences that we find are the product of our environment only. And so if we homogenize the environment, we create a homogeneous population. And if we are all the same, we will not be able to highlight differences and therefore we can end racism. I realize that this is a very, very big stretch in logic, but that is where the public system is going if the modern educational establishment has its way. Let me tell you a bit of a story that will help you understand what I'm coming from here. I have a brother who may be only a year younger than me, but we're years apart respecting our characters. Not that either of us is lacking in our respective talents, but I've always been better at using my head than using my hands. My brother, on the other hand, while not lacking in brain power, displays a genius level of creativity and ability to make, fix, or invent anything. Well, I had no problem doing math. My brother applied it. If we would have been put in the same math class, we would both have been challenged, but not in the way these directors of education think. In order to accommodate both our learning styles, they would have had to reduce the level of academic expectation, which would have caused me to be bored out of my mind and him to be struggling while learning a math that was not at all related to what he would and could do. It would certainly never have made us the same, even if we had studied the same math in the same way. Thankfully, the schools back then were streamed. That is, my brother went through a system emphasizing and developing his gifts and strengths, while I went a route that emphasized mine. We both ended up finishing high school that not only qualified us, but prepared us to continue in our respective worlds. Now, you may wonder why I'm bringing this up. Why is the home educator talking about the craziness that's going on in the schools? The answer is simple. Don't do that. Emphasize and celebrate the differences in your children. I want to end by quoting the last part of that article, and then I encourage you to consider what it says in light of home education. The writer here is actually commenting on the insanity that we brought up earlier. What's so awful about social justice doctrine is that it will hurt the very kids it's supposed to help. It deploys significant resources in the wrong direction and aggressively ignores everything important that we know about children and school achievement. Decades of social science research confirms that the biggest predictors of school achievement are family structure effects, family composition, family stability, parental education, and socioeconomic status. These have nothing to do with entrenched systems of power and privilege, and everything to do with factors such as having two parents, close parental supervision. Sad to say, not all the anti-bias training in the world is going to change that.
We trust you were blessed by today's presentation. For more helpful information to guide you in your home education journey, please visit educationunlimited.ca and leogaumont.com. Be sure to like us and share us on Facebook.